Hello everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey everybody, Cantonese Cat here at Tesla. If you're going to the event thinking that the Robotaxi is going to change the stock price for the positive, most of the time these things don't work out very well. The only thing that was kind of going for it was that we've kind of gone down 2 weeks in a row now into the event. So you're thinking the event's probably going to be maybe a little bit more positive. But honestly, the entire thing is going to be more futuristic. They're not going to talk about anything that's going to matter in terms of the bottom line or top line in the short term. But it is still very promising for the company to be able to reveal the potential that it has. And in general, Wall Street likes to sell the news. To me, honestly, like I really don't have a whole lot of hype to kind of go into the news to begin with. It's if you're a seasoned trader, you probably would not be going to these events, very bullish anyway. And we just had a stream with the Real Blind Broker, with the great Matsby, and we also talked with our friend, the Tesla Tracker, and pretty much all of us agree that most likely it's going to go down before going up. And most of us agree that based on looking at the stock, it's a very much of a very bullish structure that's been building up over the last couple of years. Like I just cannot emphasize the higher low that we've formed over here compared to over here. We cannot emphasize that there's a lot of stock supply that has been absorbed. We cannot emphasize that there's a lot of stock demand that has happened over the last 2 years. Just looking at market structure, it just looks healthy, right? This looks like a little bit of a double bottom. This looks like it wants to kind of break out above this neckline over here, whatever structure you want to call it. You can call it head and shoulder, you can call it whatever you want. Technically, head and shoulder may be more of a reversal pattern. I guess this is technically not a reversal per se, but double bottom, head and shoulders, doesn't matter what you call it, it still look pretty bullish. Now, looking at the 2-week Ichimoku cloud, and this is something that I've been kind of horned into for a very, very long time because it's been rejected by it for almost 3 years now, right? Ever since we really broke down underneath of it, we've been rejected here multiple times. From the top of the cloud to the bottom of the cloud, and it's been building a lot of energy. Potentially it can break out above. Whenever it does, I think sky's the limit. Whenever it hasn't broken underneath of it yet, it's still going to serve as resistance, and price can certainly falter here for maybe even another few months or so before breaking out. I think that the structure is strong enough that it's probably going to end up breaking out relatively soon, and the event to me is a non-event one way or another that is basically backtesting some technicals. Now, what has been transpiring is that I think it just got rejected here again by the 2-week Ichimoku cloud about 2 weeks ago, where everybody is really excited. Prices in the 250s, 260s, or even higher, right? Around like 265, so around there, everybody got really excited. But it simply just hasn't broken out. And when it hasn't broken out, when you get rejected, what is it going to try to do? It's going to try to find some support levels down below. Because of how strong this 2-week Ichimoku cloud has been serving as resistance, both from the top of the cloud and the bottom of the cloud, I use this as a guide in terms of where I think price could end up gravitating to after it got rejected. It's going to find support, right? Support most likely going to be found at the bottom of the cloud. Where's the bottom of the cloud right now? Bottom of the cloud right now is 223.62. You also have a rising conversion line or Tenkan, which is going to be around 224. So this level over here is going to serve as some pretty strong support here, and it would be nice to form a higher low here. Now, it can wick down below that, just like it wick above over here at the 2-week Ichimoku cloud here multiple times. It can wick below that, and that really wouldn't get me that scared at all. This candle doesn't close for another week and 1 day, right? If you look at the weekly chart here, you also have a rising Tenkan here that can also potentially serve as support. Rising Tenkan is around 229.77. Top of the Ichimoku cloud right now is 222.76. So there's a lot of confluence of support zone down here that it wants to gravitate to that it's doing. Right now, so far, we have been able to hold this Supaichi Tenkan up here. But if it doesn't hold, Supaichi, there are some lower levels down here. Like, as far as I'm concerned, as long as it doesn't break below 200, this is still a very bullish stock. As far as I'm concerned, I don't really care about the short-term volatility. And the lower it gets, the better. Matter of fact, I think that anything really underneath the 2-week Ichimoku cloud here before its breakout is going to be a good buy, because it looks like it wants to say goodbye because of the market structure to this 2-week Ichimoku cloud. So that's one thing that I'm really kind of looking forward to. The other thing is just looking at the bull market support band. It has truly really flipped it from resistance here to support. And the currently bull market support band is around like 220.6 to 218, somewhere around there. And that's going to be an additional layer of support, right? You're really talking about pre-market. It's around 224 right now, hovering around the area. You're really hitting a lot of these kind of support area here on the Ichimoku, on the Supi-Ichi. Like you can see, like on the 2-week chart here, there's a lot of support here down below, right? So because of that, I actually think that there's a good chance, even if it wicks below and grab liquidity underneath in the 2 teens, there's a good chance it's probably going to hold. And when it's going to hold, just like it got rejected over here, when it's able to find support, it's going to gravitate back up towards up here, and it's going to build up more energy to try and push back up above, right? Now, if you're asking in terms of what I think, in terms of the volume so far this week, I guess today's probably going to end up having more volume because we just had an event. But this week's volume really hasn't been that great, and it was a little bit of a down candle here. We'll see what happens when volume picks up. I think most likely it's going to kind of gravitate down here. If it turns out that this week's just a wick, that's extremely bullish, right? If it turns out we end up closing at around this range over here, then we'll see. If the volume's huge, if we end up closing down underneath around like the 220s or even the 2 teens, and the volume is like huge, then there might be some potential for it to go down further, right? I really do think that we're going to end up holding around the zone, and there's a potential that even this week that this could just turn out to be a little bit of a wick, just because of the market structure, just because of everything that I'm kind of looking at. It just looks like it's a bull trend, right? You can call this a double top or whatever. Like, it really doesn't matter to me. But if you look at, like, if you just zoom out a little bit here, this is a bullish market structure. You know how else I know it's a bullish market structure is if you look at the monthly here, and this hasn't changed at all, right? You have a little bit of a bullish band squeeze here, but you have a rising 20-month moving average serving as support now, which has not been the case really since like right around here, around like March of 2022. That was really the last time where a little bit of exhausted 20-month moving average was serving as support, and since then it's really been resistance, right? And now we flipped that into support. So the longer time trend, it seems to be very, very promising. Even on the shorter time trend, if you look at the weekly here, you can see that the bull market support band is still rising up, and it looks like it's still wanting to kind of push up higher over time. Maybe after it comes back and back tests what it has to, right? And if you even just look at the intermediary, look at the 2-week, the 2-week is telling you something very interesting, right? The 2-week median here is curling from negative to positive, and the Bollinger Band on the 2-week chart is expanding. So that tells me that this might allow more room for Tesla to kind of run up over time. Same thing here. The upper Bollinger Band here on the monthly right now is around 282. It's going to allow price to eventually gravitate up towards like the high 270s and the low 280s, right? If you also look at the monthly Ichimoku cloud, I think again, if it's able to hold the 2 teens or even 200 level, I think this is still a bullish stock, and I think it will hold just because there's a lot more support down here at the zone over here. Currently at the pre-market 224 all the way down to the 2 teens, there's a lot of support over here, even on a higher time frame. So I think there's probably going to build up a lot of more energy here after kind of going sideways down here a little bit longer before pushing through. And when it pushes through, it could potentially surprise a lot of people. It's not going to be because of the Robotaxi event. It's not going to be because of any of that. Earnings also coming up, I think, in a couple of weeks. And I think that the earnings most likely has troughed. It's probably still not going to be great. But I think that the key thing for Wall Street right now is to make sure that the earnings have troughed and that the downside is maybe potentially a little bit more limited now at this point. I'm not going to talk too much about like fundamentals or like PE ratio or anything like that. I gotta say, and I should keep like how bullish I am on the company's products separately from what I'm seeing on the technical analysis. I just bought a Model 3 just a couple weeks ago, and it was something that I've always wanted to get. I always wanted to get a Tesla ever since I learned about the company. The products is really truly superior compared to everything else that I've tried out there for the price. I am a cheapskate. I compared the same pricing range compared to everything. I test drove a lot of vehicles before I committed to a Tesla 3. I love the glass roof. I love the fact that I have potential to do FSD, which I think I will after stock market goes up higher, after I'm able to convince Mrs. Cat to get FSD, which I think it's not going to take that much convincing, to be completely honest. It's simply the best car I've ever driven, and also based on value compared to everything else. Like I don't really see anything that can beat it, and they're making pretty decent margin out of this. The question right now is they're having improving margin for a very, very long time ago, a few years ago, and the margin improvement has just kind of stopped. If anything, it's just kind of gotten worse. These things are cyclical. The economy is cyclical, and they're printing money, and I think a lot of these things are going to end up going into stocks, and eventually when you have a bull market because of the money printing, you're going to end up having a bull market that could potentially take years of gains ahead. And that's okay, because it's a bull market. During a bull market, people probably don't care about the valuation as much. They care about the future, they care about the growth. And we'll see whether or not the Robotaxi event has really kind of brought a lot of attention to this. I think it will. And I think that there's going to be some more further volatility moving forward. But because of global liquidity breakout that hasn't really happened over the last few years, we just had a breakout, and I think Tesla's probably going to follow. Anyway, that's just kind of my 2 cents. If it doesn't, that's fine, because you're probably going to be able to make money elsewhere because of increased global liquidity, right? I would never go all in on Tesla, but based on everything that I'm seeing so far on the chart, I simply cannot be that bearish for it longer term. And if this sell-off is done, wherever it ends up being, I think the next move is probably going to be up. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Have a good one. Bye.